This week, more Aaron Roberts than you can shake a stick at. Warning, do not shake a stick at Aaron Roberts. We ask how much lore could a lore maker make if a lore maker could make lore? The answer may surprise you. And we take an early look at AI subsumption in this week's A.T.V. Fast Forward. All this and more on this week's Around the Verse.
Wow, that's a lot of ships.
Yes, that was a time lapse of Port Olisar. Someone stuck a camera above the landing platforms during the free fly, so you saw just a huge variety of ships coming and going. And it's neat how it works pretty much like an actual time lapse of like an airport or a port. It just came together that way.
Lots of ships in Star Citizen. Greetings and welcome to Around the Verse, your weekly look at Star Citizen's development and community. I'm Sandy Gardner.
I'm Ben Lesnick.
And Ben, what can we do in Star Citizen today?
Well, I'm pleased to announce that Star Citizen Alpha 2.3 is now available on the live server. This update adds the hangar-ready Starfarer, the flyable Jean Scout, a couple of FPS weapons hidden in Crusader, and new engine components for the component pipeline that's coming together now. It looks like the release went great. It's nice and stable. Folks are having a good time.
We'd be remiss if we didn't thank the thousands of PTU testers who made this launch possible. We couldn't have done it without you. What is the team working on now, though?
Well, in addition to Squadron 42, our single-player adventure, which is currently being put together by folks in the UK, the Persistence Universe team is moving on to Star Citizen Alpha 2.4. We're ways off from the content cutoff, so we don't necessarily know what's absolutely going to be in this patch, but we're talking about all sorts of systems, including the possibility of persistence.
Do you want to explain persistence?
Well, right now when you log into the Crusader mini PU, everything resets every time. So you'll have a different bedroom and things will be arranged differently. Your ship will reset. It won't have the same damage or the same criminal level or anything like that. So a big step towards the finished universe is making things carry over from game session to game session. And one of the things they're working on, not necessarily for 2.4, although we're hoping that it will be available in the next couple of releases, is persistence. And QA just started testing their very first build that includes that.
So we're finally getting the P in the PU. You like that one?
No.
I'm becoming more Ben. The Starfarer and Jean Scout are on sale until Monday. These two ships couldn't be any more different. One is a tiny alien fighter, and the other is practically a flying level in itself. Foundry 42 put together a great trailer to show off the Starfarer in action. Check it out.
We also put together a cool website to promote the Starfarer's launch into the verse. It has an interactive magazine that shows a day in the life of a Starfarer, and it follows one crew through sort of ordinary activities and shows off how some of the NPCs are going to work in Star Citizen. There's also a map of the Starfarer, since it's pretty easy to get lost in there.
We're also making the Starfarer available for everybody for the weekend so that everyone can check out what we're doing on larger ships, regardless of whether or not you have purchased one.
Yeah, because the guys at Foundry 42 have put so much love and sweat and blood into this one, and it's just the first example of the many, many larger ships we're working on building. We want everybody to get to experience that, so check out your hangars this weekend.
We have a new Star Citizen mousepad available starting tomorrow, featuring the current lineup of Anvil Aerospace ships, including the Carrack, Crucible, Gladiator, and Hornet. Get yours before they're gone. We also have the dog tags, which are on sale till Monday, and the Squadron 42 and a couple of other styles of t-shirts, which are $5 and $10. Yay.
The really small ones.
The really small ones, teeny tiny ones. So I saw a Reddit thread, actually, people were wearing them as under stuff for workouts. Why not?
Hi, how you doing? This is Sony Santa Monica, and today I bring a special guest. My name is Reddy Vasquez, one of the producers here, and this is
Chad McKinney. I'm a gameplay engineer.
right. He's one new addition to our team. So here in LA, the engineering team has really been kind of focusing on the item system and kind of getting all the underlying things like components for ships, FPS, everything kind of start going into a new system and everything. And then art side, they've been working on a lot of character stuff. They've been working on a bunch of ships, some of the new ships that I came to talk about, and then some of the ships, like some of the favorites, like I think I saw them doing some of the stuff on the Caterpillar. That was really awesome. Design-wise, they're working on a few other ships that I can't talk about yet that should be coming out soon. And then we've also been working with the engineering for components and that. So what are you working on though?
Right now, I'm just figuring everything out, looking through all of the code and documentation, but I'm starting to look at the new item components and looking at doors soon. So yes, doors, automatic doors.
That's awesome. Well, if anything, y'all know like Star Citizen is such a huge project, so take a while to ramp up.
Okay.
Nice. Well, thank you. This is Santa Monica, and you guys take it easy. See you in the verse.
Hey guys, Jake Ross here, producer of the Austin Studio, and I'm here with you this week to give a little update on what's going on here in ATX. So first, starting off the bat, we're full blown into shopping at this point. We are not messing around. We're trying to get it out there in your hands, and part of that is kind of making it bigger and better than we originally planned. So originally we had a scope, and we're realizing that we can, let's get this thing in here, let's get that thing in here, and without going into too much detail, we're looking at we have our sights on Port Olisar. So we want to try and bring a few shopping experiences to Port Olisar as well. So the Port Olisar obviously wasn't built with shops in mind per se, so we're having to go back and kind of rejigger some things, some of the spaces to make sure we make room for some of these experiences we have in mind. But that's in the works. So in addition to that, we are also setting up additional shops beyond just Cassava Outlet like we were originally planning. So we're trying to bring Dumpers Depot online, bring Cubby Blast online. We're looking into the medical unit to help sell some medical supplies. So all that involves some kind of additional features, including what we're calling kiosk terminal shopping, which is basically, you go into a shop and let's say you've got a bunch of shelves in the back that you can't access, or you have really big items like ship weapons. Obviously you can't go up to a ship weapon on a shelf. It's just too big. So we have what we call kiosk terminal purchasing, where you actually have to go up to a kiosk and cycle through an inventory and purchase that way. And we're still working on that whole entire loop, because we want to make sure that it still feels like it's not just a gamey type shopping experience, but we're making it special. So, but just the reality is we just can't fit however many 60 or so ship weapons into a little shop. So we have to come up with a solution for that. So we're fleshing out the rest of the shopping experience and getting that online here recently. So that's really exciting. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel there. So last thing I'll mention with regards to that is Persistence is now fully integrated into game dev, which is our main development stream. What this means is that for the longest time, our server engineers with support from Jeff Zhu have been developing in their own stream, and now it's all integrated into our main development stream, which means that we can never go back. We can never go back to what was before, and so things will now forever persist in our main development stream, which is exciting, but it also brings with it a lot of bugs that we're having to fix, and so we're ironing out those kinks. But now what's exciting, because behavior can go in and they can hook into our persistent backend with their shopping interface. So that things are actually persisting now. We can actually set up things like the port modification tool in the hangars, so you guys can actually go in and customize things in the hangars. QA is having a blast with that, by the way. I was standing over the shoulder of some of them recently, just watching them kind of walk around and shift things around and just move their fish tank from one spot of the hangar to the other. And no, I don't want an Avenger there. I want to put my new Scout there. So let's just swap out that Avenger real quick. Put the Scout right there, and you can actually switch hangars now in the main menu, which is cool. So you don't have to go through the website or anything. So it's a lot of cool things that are coming online now that we have persistence in game dev, and a lot of people are really excited about it. So it's pretty cool. We also put 2.3.0 out last week, very late on Friday night. So I want to give a shout out to a few folks on the operations team and in QA. We had a lot of people just go above and beyond last week to try to get that into your hands. Sometimes some of these patches are not full of new content, but they have a lot of important back-end features that you just don't see. Every single patch is still really important to us, and it's important to the operations guys as well, because that's their thing, and getting this content out into your hands. So shout out to those guys, and we'll look to do it again next month with 2.4. Also, lastly, I want to give a shout out to the unsung heroes of this video content you're watching, Thomas Hennessy and Justin Chambers, excuse me. Thanks to those guys and all that they do. I know they don't get a lot of camera-facing time, but I want to give a shout out to those guys as well. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Thomas. That's all I have for you this week, guys. See y'all later. Bye.
Hello everyone, welcome to the UK. Tom here, and I've brought along Matt Webster with me this week. He's a live producer and audio producer, and just wanted to give you guys an update for something different. Talk a little bit more about the live production. So yeah, could Matt just give us a feel of what's going on the live stuff?
Lots is going on, absolutely fun stuff. I'll start with 2.3, which came out pretty recently. We had the Starfarer going into the hangar, massive kit, multi-crew kit. Absolutely enormous. I haven't had the chance to go walking around all of it myself. There's just so many nooks and crannies to it, but everyone seems to be absolutely loving it. Good response to the forums.
Like the attention.
Yeah, people definitely seeing the next big step was the Star Citizen. Really. And the Scout came flight ready as well. Again, really cool new kit, pretty different, yeah, from everything else. Everything else we've done from more, with the exception of the Vandal, still an alien kit, but it still looks like a regular kit. Scout, the Xi'an Scout is crazy, giant starfish, sort of transforms, land. Yeah, it's awesome. We also stuck in some new weaponry in there as well. We stuck in the shotgun, and that's the Devastator 12, and the Arrowhead sniper rifle. So you can go around and start. Right. Bit of variety in the FPS arena of Korea Station, and waiting in corners, camping.
Couldn't do that. Yeah. So there's some technical things going on.
Yeah, we've got a couple of server issues that we're basically trying to track down. Got some slowdown on servers, and we're just trying to narrow down highly things.
In the meantime, work
it is underway, and we just have to wait.
Okay, thanks guys. That's it for this week. We'll see you
later.
Hey everyone, Brian Chambers from Frankfurt. This week I don't really have a huge meaty update on what the team's been doing. With the Easter break and days off and so on and so on. People have definitely been working, but I don't really have anything substantial and when it makes sense to run through each department because they're pretty much finishing up or continuing on what they were doing last. One thing I did get a question from Disco Lando the other day that talked about VR and asked if we could say anything about kind of what's going on there. VR is definitely something that's going to be done. Right now, to be honest with you, it's a little bit, I guess you could say, on hold. Not on hold indefinitely. It's just when we're tackling tech items, design items across any discipline, whatever it might be, we set priority. And VR is something that with the guys here, we know we can accomplish. We know what we need to do to get it there. It's just not the highest thing on priority right now. It's building up those other foundational things, getting tools work done, continuing on the procedural stuff, so on and so on, getting things optimized, getting them to where they need to be. So we have a whole tech plan. VR is definitely on there. It's definitely going to get the support and the love that it needs. But it's not on the priority just yet. I'll try to give an update on that once I realize where it is and when it's coming online. Besides that, team is doing good. We're still growing. We just signed another contract. I think we're up to 41 people now here, which is great. Getting a good group of talented guys to be able to pull off what we need. Yeah. Besides that, things are good over here. It's starting to warm up finally, which is good. If you guys have any more questions for Frankfurt team, send them through the channels. I'm going to try to get on the forums a little bit more. I'm going to try to encourage the guys here as well so we can jump in and kind of interface with you guys a little bit more directly and answer questions and just chat, and you guys can get an idea of kind of what we're doing and what it's like to be here. So cool. Thanks again for all the support, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Next up, Jared sits down with Aaron Roberts to discuss the future of the persistent universe. Over to you, Jared.
You've sort of led me into this now. We're talking about different departments. There's the audio, there's the designers. Give me just a short breakdown of Foundry 42. What departments exist in Foundry 42?
So we have Foundry 42 now. We have the audio departments there. We have the environment pipelines read out of that is led out of the UK. So we have about, I think it's about 18 environment artists in the UK, but then also we have environment support in Canada as well.
From behavior?
From behavior, right. And then we have the ship pipelines led out of the UK as well. And we have about 17, 18 ship artists in the UK. And I tell you what, you need them when you're making capital ships. I mean, I guess you guys have seen the Starfarer, but when you see some of the size of the other ships we're making, and the Idris, by the way, which looks amazing and is pretty much done. But then we have a Javelin, we have a Bengal, we have stuff like
pretty
that.
Pretty much done, not done, guys.
But it's like, so we have sort of teams, and so that's led out there. And then we also obviously have a ship team here in LA and a ship team in Austin as well. I mean, smaller, but and stuff like that. We have the props pipeline is out of the UK, so basically all those sort of props and stuff it's led out there as well as behavior. Once again, helps with that. What else we've got in the UK? It's pretty much a lot. I mean, the UK has obviously the largest body of employees and so forth, and so we basically do kind of do a lot of the sort of horsepower in terms of like just making sure a lot of the assets and stuff come out from the teams.
And not just for Squadron 42, for Star Citizen.
Yes, it's global. So all the environments and ships basically for the for the PU and stuff and stuff like that on those pipelines are basically pushed for the UK. And then also we have there's a bunch of animation work that comes out of there, as well as Austin does a bunch of animation work, and and then the German office got some animation as well. And then the German office, as part of Foundry 42, they have the cinematics pipeline team, and also they sort of run the FPS side of things. Although they work very close to the UK. The German office and UK office, like I said, the same company basically, and so we work in the same time zone, so we're very close. So a lot of even though some of the production's led out of Germany for that stuff, there's a lot of the people in the UK who work on that stuff with the German office, and then once again it's the other way around as well. Okay. And of course Germany does a load of the core tech, because we were very fortunate to pick up a bunch of the guys who pretty much wrote the CryEngine in the first place, and they basically have been doing a bunch of work, and then you guys have seen that with stuff like the procedural planets and things like that. So.
Cool. Now, 2014. Mostly building infrastructure, building the company up, building the foundations for Squadron 42, getting the tech stuff. One of the popular terms that gets thrown around a lot that many people may not understand is vertical slice. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about what a vertical slice is?
So vertical slice is basically taking one part of the game and making sure that it hits up all the different areas of what you're trying to achieve in that game. You know, I mean, you don't get everything typically, but you try and say, right, so say a vertical slice for Squadron 42 would be you're out flying, and so you work out, you'd basically pick a mission which basically has you flying around, getting out, EVAing, doing something in space, landing on a structure, going into the structure, wandering around, having a big FPS battle, that kind of stuff. And then you're basically trying to hit up all the elements, space, ground, and then also you'd have interactive. So a big thing in Squadron is the whole idea that you live in a living, breathing ship. So a vertical slice would have you, also wandering around, the ship you live on, talking to people, doing stuff, as well as then the story elements and the cinematics and stuff like that. So that's kind of what it is. And so you're taking a little section and saying, this is basically the game in this little section, and this basically proves that we can get all this sort of stuff done. And then you sit there, and if you look at it and go, wow, that's awesome, then you know, okay, all we're doing now is going down, is knocking out all the other rest of the stuff.
Gotcha. So anything else you were working on in 2014, vertical slice, getting the technology ready, 64-bit conversion?
2014, a lot of 2014, so basically I said, we came on to do Squadron 42 work, but then there was and originally when we came on, the team we weren't planning on actually having a large studio. That was not the plan. We were maybe 40, 50 people, we were going to work on some stuff, we were going to do some outsourcing and so forth things. One big thing happened in the UK, which actually then changed, and this is what it's changed around the way we do some development, is the UK government brought in a tax credit, which basically meant that for development for games and so forth in the UK, that if basically to incentivize to bring back, because the games industry in the UK has been pretty run down and stuff like that, and especially where I live northwest, even more so and so forth, and so it's been really good for the UK in terms of a lot of things. It was great, because like I said, we've been bringing people back to the UK as usual, but they basically give you this tax credit where they'll give you money back for the money you spend, and so it just all of a sudden became a really obviously. Of course, you're going to, when you have that sort of ability to not only, obviously we're very, very lucky to have all the support from the backers, but then if we can use the backers' money to get more support, so we can put more money into the game, because the government has tax credits, which meant that we decided then we were going to expand the workforce in the UK, and it made much more sense to basically put more bodies in the UK than in other areas where there wasn't the sort of incentive from the government. So that's kind of what happened. So we built the whole team up for that kind of stuff. And as we built, we then said, well, it's not just Squadron 42, which we'll be doing in the UK, then we should actually be supporting the PU. And so now we do, in the UK, yes, we are heavily doing Squadron 42, but and the same thing is we get a lot of support Squadron 42 from the US as well, and from the German and from the Frankfurt office, as well as Austin here. So everyone works together on Squadron 42, and everyone works together on the Persistent Universe. But then we also do a lot of so we do the FPS stuff like we talked about, German office, we do that kind of stuff, but we do a bunch of stuff on everything together as one company. And I think originally it was an interesting dynamic when we first started, because you can have this between the studios, because you have an ability to work really well together if you do it right, because basically we're working on something in the UK, and then like now I'm in the US now, obviously over here, and then they do a handoff, and so I'm here, we'll have the handoff, and then if there's any issues, we get to fix those stuff, and then we do a handoff back to the UK, and it works really well. So you're almost getting 24-hour development and to support and so forth. However, if it's not organised right, it can go the other way, because then you're waiting a day to hear back from someone and so forth. And I think, you know, and so we worked through a bunch of those issues, you know, in the early days, in early 2014, of how we're going to work together as an organisation, and then getting people, and then also really working out who owns what in a lot of ways, because it's really important that, like, you don't feel, you know, that everybody understands what their ownership is, what they're in charge of. Because if you get a situation where two people aren't sure who's doing what, or who's in charge of what, then, you know, it can lead to, discussions and, you know, problems and morale issues and so forth and things. So it's very much so a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, we've been working out is like exactly who's in charge of what, and it's very clear production responsibilities with different producers in different studios. And even if there's people they're working with another studio, if they're the guy in charge of that sort of stuff, then they know that they're the people coordinating it. So you don't have stuff, because it's not only just the fact that people might get upset, oh, they're treading on our toes, but it's also the fact that sometimes stuff just doesn't get done because everybody goes, oh, I thought you were doing that, and they go, oh no, I thought you were doing that. And so now, you know, we've been just, as an organisation, as we grow, we've been basically working through all these issues, making it a lot better, and now it's like really great the way the organisation works together, and just it's really solid.
Yeah, we didn't have the benefit of being a company that's existed for 5 years before we started this project.
Absolutely.
So we're having to discover these procedures, write these protocols.
Oh, you're building everything, organisation. You're building, it's everything to do with that. So we're trying to build a game. We're trying to fund the game the way it's never been done before. We're trying to build it in the way it's never been done before. And we're trying to build an organisation at the same time, and it's a lot of fun. But we are really fortunate, because I have to say I have never worked with such a talented bunch of guys. They're just like this group of people just from all over the world, just really good. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, you're welcome, Aaron. I do what I can. All right, so 2015. Now we're getting ready for the performance capture shoot. For Squadron 42. What was that like? How do you set up something like that? How did we get in bed with Imaginarium?
So that was more, once again, because originally we were thinking about doing it was going to make sense to do the shoot in LA. But once again, because of the tax credit situation, once again, as I said, masterstroke by the government, as far as I'm concerned, we decided to move it to the UK, because once again, any sort of money that's spent in Britain is 20% back. So we're working in Imaginarium, working in Ealing Studios, and so you get that tax incentive back again. So that was basically the reason for doing it in the UK. And Imaginarium was because we went and we spent some time going around talking to the different houses and the people who we really felt were in sync with us, and felt really good to work with, and had very good conversation with and stuff like that, and really seemed to be shared our sort of ideas of what we want to do, but also in terms of where technology was going and how we maybe could work together and do stuff. We're Imaginarium, and so we had very good conversations with them. And so we decided to basically, go that route. And then John Schimmel, obviously, who comes from the background of linear production, then put the whole thing together. We got the people in. It's a bit of a, getting the right people in, building the team. And a performance capture shoot is not unlike a film shoot. It's pretty much you need the same people doing the same sort of stuff. You're basically filming people, but in a different way. And so it's so that side of the business is kind of pretty much people know how that works. So things.
What was it like getting those emails from John Schilmer, whoever, that, oh yeah, we've got Mark Hamill, oh yeah, we've got Gary Oldman, with those good moments were you there?
No, it's good. I mean, I think with some of those guys, it's fantastic. The cast was a really great cast to have, and that was a lot of fun. And it really helps because Chris has got some good relationships with some of those guys from his past and stuff. And so, and it's kind of like, and it's fun just when they get on the set as well. Just seeing the guys there, and I think they kind of had a lot of fun coming on there and doing and working on the and doing this as well. So it was all around a great experience.
Okay. So we do 3 or 4 months of the initial shoot. I don't remember exactly. 3 to 4 months.
I think it was. No, it was about 8 weeks. I think.
Okay. Then the setup, the production. I'm thinking the time that Chris.
Well, yeah. I mean, you always have to have the production teams running beforehand to make sure it's all set. But the actual time on stage, I think it was 6-7 weeks, I think, something like that. Gotcha.
And then, so that stuff comes back to Foundry UK, I guess. Well, it goes to everybody, whoever needs it, right? What do we do with that footage?
So when all the footage goes in, it then it gets processed, so we can use it, and it goes to the animation team. And there's there's obviously the body side of it, and there's the facial side. And we have one team of guys, which is led by John Jones, who's in in Derby, and he basically has a crew of guys who basically get all that, so all the facial stuff, and then they work with Cubic Motion, who basically go and take and get all the camera stuff and bring it back and make sure that the facial stuff's working on the characters and stuff. And then you have the body guys, and all the body stuff comes back to our teams in Austin, in the UK, and in Germany, and then they take all that information, and then we get it in the game. And then we have all the facial scans, which go off to Free Lateral for team, and then they basically the ones who come up with the faces and so forth, which then we then take all that information and play the stuff on.
So we've got the performance capture shoot done. We're processing the animations. What's the last half of 2015 for Foundry 42? What are we working on now?
Well, I mean, obviously Squadron, and also, that was the big heavy lifting for 2.0 and getting that stuff out, and that was a mammoth effort from a lot of people, not just because of the huge technology. Can you imagine? You're basically got all this work going behind the scenes, and then you get it running. And then, that was probably the longest PTU cycle we were on with people. But basically, you're basically throwing out a whole new code base, and so you're just working through, and so that was a good amount of work.
So the decision is made to create the mini PU, the baby PU. Tony had an interesting name for it. I can't remember what it was now. Not the micro, Protoverse. He wanted to call it the Protoverse, whatnot. When did that decision come about? When did we decide we were ready to start the baby PU?
That was always the plan. I mean, that was always the plan once the tech was involved, but we couldn't do that without this, the 64-bit. So we can have the huge spaces, and then also. And there was a lot of other tech and stuff that had to be built for that. But as soon as we had that, then the idea was what we were going to do is get actually the seed of the experience of what Star Citizen is out there, and we're going to start with basically doing a little corner of the Crusader, and so that sort of area, and then we're going to build out Crusader, to basically become the first sort of like system with all and stuff, and so we'll have all different planets in there, and then the system is Stanton. Thank you. We talked about this before, and it always slips my mind. And so basically, what we're building out is Stanton system, and we're going to build out all the locations of Stanton system. We're going to get the players doing lots of stuff through, because how the systems are so huge. There's a huge amount of gameplay. I mean, there's more gameplay in one system in our game than there'll be in most games out there, and so now what we're doing is we're seeding in all the different locations, and we're putting in, we'll be putting in the ability to do missions you can always kind of do, but persistence goes in very soon, and with persistence then basically you have the ability to go in and earn money and do stuff and buy stuff and play and trade, and obviously as things we'll layer these in, but you'll be able to trade, and you'll be able to go mining and earn stuff, and you'll be able to do different missions, and you'll be able to do things like that and so forth. And so this is what we're doing. So right now, this year, what people are going to see is a huge, they're going to see the whole of what Star Citizen just taking shape and the ability to do that, along with obviously all the sort of capital ships that are coming online, so people can really just do cool things together and that sort of level as well.
So shopping is going to come online here soonish. No dates. Shopping, and that's not just for ArcCorp. There will be some component of that eventually.
No. This we will be putting shopping in Crusader.
Gotcha. So there'll be a little boutique on the
Stanton system. You'll go there. You will basically be able to so you can go down. You're playing the game and you earn some what we're going to call alpha UEC, and you'll go in and you'll be able to go and play the game, and you literally will play it like you would play a game, and you go and trade, you'll earn some money, you'll spend some money, there'll be items you'll be able to buy and so forth and things like that. And we're going to run this alpha UEC cycle for probably a long time, and then every time we come up with a new version, we'll probably wipe it and start people again, and then we'll adjust stats again, and so we're going to use this as a huge balance pass and keep on going with people, but all the time people will be able to play and actually go and experience and build stuff up and buy new stuff and weapons and components to put on their ships, and buy clothes and do all this kind of stuff and things like that, and buy armor and weapons, and actually earn and do stuff and get together with people and do things like that.
Okay. And to clarify for those, we are in alpha and we have UEC, but what we're talking about is a new temporary currency that we're at the moment calling alpha UEC.
Yes, so basically anything, UEC is something at the moment that people have paid their good hard earned cash on, and if you buy anything with that, then you get to keep it, you get to use it anytime, stuff like that. So if you've bought it with your actual UEC, then you'll have that when you go into Crusade, and you'll be able to use those sort of items. All we're talking about here is we're going to give the ability, which I know a lot of people have been looking forward to. So basically, when you go in, you'll now start earning UEC in the game, but it won't be the same as that money you paid for. Because,
it's like funny money.
Because yes, it's funny money, because basically we want it in there so people can go there and test it and do the system and buy stuff and build themselves up. But obviously, once, like I said, obviously at some point it'll get wiped when we maybe do a new video. I mean, sometimes we may not wipe it, sometimes we may, and so forth. But the idea is when we have big new upgrades, then we'll probably wipe it and then get people starting again to test it, because we may well be changing prices, we may be doing this sort of stuff, we may be adding new features or items and so forth, new missions and things and all kind of stuff and so forth. So basically, the Alpha UEC is basically just for people to go in and play that. So if you've just got your Aurora and that's it, and you're going to go in, and if you work really hard and go and do a lot of missions and earn lots of credits, you're going to be able to upgrade your Aurora. You can buy a new ship, all that kind of stuff. Although buying a new ship in the game is quite expensive. You don't. It's like if you went and bought like an aircraft carrier, and nowadays, it's you've got to. It takes a long time to get there and so forth and things like that.
So it's a thing that we can use. We can dump a bunch into the market. We can pull a bunch out of the market. It's how we're gonna figure out the entire economy, basically.
And the great thing is we're going to have our community with us, helping us. Explore that, balance it, get the feedback. I mean, already on the PTU stuff we do, it's fantastic. I mean, just right now in the middle of getting 2.3 out, and the feedback we get is immense, because every morning, I've not said it before, but we literally are on the forums, and on a daily basis, we have guys who specifically just go through, look at the issues, get them down, look at okay, are some issues just like a single thing, or is it a lot of people and so forth? We get that sort of feedback, and we get that feedback every morning, and then we go through it, and then we get to implement that stuff, and that's why we can have really fast turnaround and stuff, which we just you don't get anywhere else, and we can't afford to hire 100,000 testers, right? So it's great having this community which supports us, not only financially but actually, just to come and basically, work with us to give us the feedback we need to make the games as good as it's going to be.
Okay, so we're adding shopping, we're adding cargo because that's necessary for trade, I assume. Mining, I assume that'll be some part of Yila in the asteroid field, I imagine. We had Luke Presley on the show a couple weeks ago. We talked about voxel asteroids eventually coming to support that. Don't
forget, our procedural stuff is just around the corner.
Yeah. I noticed Crusader moved a lot closer to the space station in 2.3. So procedural, we're going to be able to fly down to Crusader?
You're going to be able to fly down to, maybe not Crusader, but you'll be able to fly down into areas and planets and stuff like that and so forth at the moment. But yes, that's the whole idea, and that's and like I said, that was actually one of the awesome things about getting the German office on board. It's not only because they know the tech really well, which really helps in a lot of different areas and really helped actually getting 2.0 out, but I mean it's because procedural stuff for us was like a stretch goal, which was like, I mean it wasn't even, it was like, we'll get to that when we get the game out and so forth. In fact, but then the guys came on board and did this amazing stuff, and we're like, and now already, because we have that, it's not just the fact that we can be able to fly down the planet, that procedural stuff allows us to do loads of other stuff, because it allows us to, so we have asteroid bases in space which will be procedurals, you can build them up and go do stuff and things like that as well, and so forth and things. So and all that tech, and it allows us to do a lot of other things, which is people are going to see the goodness of pretty soon. So
I remember the day Chris came. We're in different halves of the office. He doesn't usually come to our half unless he's leaving for the day. And he comes over with a flash drive. He comes to my desk. I'm like, Chris is walking to my desk. What is going on? He goes, put this in and watch this. He was so happy. It was the very first iteration of Pupil the Planet.
Yeah.
And we just showing it. He goes, Ben, come here. And we all gathered around and we watched it. We were all just flabbergasted.
Now it's
like, we're here already. It's like, we're here.
No. I mean, and the funny thing is, it's like, because it was Christmas time just before, and Marco, who's been working with some of the guys over there, just said, I think we should just show this, and I didn't really know what to expect. And then it's like, wow, okay. And then they had all the tech working, and then Sean did a lot of work on that, and as well, and getting stuff and stuff like that. But it was pretty amazing stuff.
Marco's fantastic. I've sent him a couple requests for interview stuff, and he's just like, I just want to make the game.
Yes, the German office are not big on interviews. To be honest, we're not in the UK either.
No,
we're not. I think it's a European thing. The cameras are not not our friends. So
That's all right.
we try and stay away as much as possible.
It's worth it for you guys to make the game that you guys are making. So we're happy. You know, some folks are like, why don't you get them on camera more often? It's like they're making the game. You know, we're us Americans are a little we're a little celebrity happy. So we're happy to be in front of the camera. Hi, Mom. This gets asked a lot, so I'm going to ask you: what happens when Squadron 42 is done?
When Squadron 42 is done, then we basically move on to episode 2. And then obviously a bunch of other work for the PU. As I said, the teams, it's one code base, the teams are very interchangeable, so people will be working on, the different things and stuff like that. But because we a lot of the work we do now for the persistent universe is we drive it all with Squadron 42 features and assets, and then basically when those come online, then the persistent universe guys can then take that and then put it into the game.
Gotcha.
And so, when we see updates will come, and then stuff will start working. Like, oh look, the radar scanning is doing lots of cool stuff, and of course this is all stuff for Squadron 42. But then it's been used in the persistent universe. And then the great thing then is people in the persistent universe are using it, and then we're working out, okay, this is how they use it, or this is cool, this isn't cool, and then we make those changes back in. But the great thing is it just enhances the experience for Squadron 42, because basically, all the fixes, everything they're doing, all the feedback we're getting means that when we actually ship Squadron 42, it won't be, we'll have had like a couple of years of feedback on what works and what doesn't work, which is why I'm really excited about it, because I think we've got this opportunity to make this game which is going to be really well thought through, and a lot of the systems and the way things work, because we'll have so many rounds of feedback about the stuff.
Yeah, I'm super excited about Squadron 42. I'm more a multiplayer guy personally. I haven't played a lot of single player games in the last couple of years, but everything I've seen for Squadron 42, and I've tried to stay away. Which is hard working here, but I've tried to stay as spoiler free as I can. But it looks everything I've seen looks so amazing.
When you're wandering around the Bengal carrier,
as one does,
javelin, all those kind of stuff. So it's a funny thing because a lot of we've got a huge ship team and they're working on stuff, but the vast majority of the assets we're working on are all Squadron 42 assets, and we use a lot of the PU stuff will be in Squadron 42 as well, but there's a lot of assets there which are not in the PU now, won't be until after Squadron 42 ships. And so, although yes, we've got the Starfarer out, which is in Squadron 42 as well, and people play that, and obviously the Idris and stuff like that will come out, but there are so many other ships there which you won't see, and of course at some point now then we will start putting them into PU, but that'll be pretty impressive when you go to a system and then you jump in and there's just like a huge Bengal carrier sitting there with like its fighters around it and stuff, and you better not be a pirate at that point.
Which leads me to my last question for you. This is a big one from our community, so I have to ask it. The Idris. Are we going to see it in the persistent universe in our hangar? Well, obviously not in our hangars, but are players going to get access to it before Squadron 42?
That's still up for discussion. There's two chains of thought on that, and I don't think it's going to be ready soon. But whether we're using it in Squadron 42 now. It's been set up in game. There's a lot of stuff going on for it. So that it's actually, I think some of the backers who come to our office, we love showing them everything, and they've seen it and they've walked around and seen the ship. It's just more about whether, because it's a big part of Squadron 42 and it's actually going to be the ship you start on and live in for a while, it's whether we just want to, if we feel like we may be spoiling it for the players, if they, if we put it out there and everyone knows the inside out and all that kind of stuff, then when it comes to Squadron 42, it's not going to be such a novelty. And so we're going to have to make a call or a thing on that. I mean, about what we do.
Yeah, there are virtues on both sides of the argument.
Now, obviously, I know people who've paid for their Idris and want it, will go, I want my Idris and I want to do that kind of stuff and things like that. But yeah, there is that stuff. And there are other areas where it would be, although the ship will be done and it'll be working for what we need for Squadron 42, because it's a single player campaign in Squadron 42, and because you are not actually piloting the ship yourself and so forth and things, it completely flies properly, that kind of stuff. But a lot of the seat action stuff, there'll be, because it's a big capital ship and the way we do seats for larger ships, and you'll start seeing that for the Starfarer and stuff like that are kind of different, and so there's a lot of UI drill down on what each seat can do, and so there's a little bit of work around that as well. But yeah, it's going to be, I can't give right now we're holding on to it. That may change depending.
You gave exactly the answer I was wanting, so we're still deciding.
Completely ambiguous.
No, it's just we wanted to get that information out there that a call had not been made yet. So Aaron, thank you so much for taking your time to chat with us. It was a very long interview. We had to split it into 2 pieces, but we'll put the whole thing up after the fact on our YouTube so people don't have to watch it in 2 pieces. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. It was fun, it's fun being here.
Yeah, have a good flight back, and back to you guys.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm your host for today, Will Weisbaum, senior writer here at CIG in beautiful sunny Los Angeles, California. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Elysium, which is a fantastic system for all its history. Let's go take a look at it now. So we're starting off on Earth, this beautiful blue marble we all call home, but not for much longer, as we're going to expand out through the stars. Let's go. To Elysium. How about that? Magic. So it is a 5-planet system that was discovered way back in November 15th, 2541. And what was so noteworthy about this system upon its discovery was that it was inhabited. It was not an empty system. We quickly learned that there was another spacefaring race who called themselves the Tavaran, living on Elysium 4, or as they called it, Calith, or Calith, depending on whether you want to use the right or incorrect pronunciation. So the UPE, the United Planets of Earth, the government at the time, were very excited to discover a whole new race. They were spacefaring technology-wise, but not quite as advanced as us humans, and we thought it was a great opportunity to expand our reach and incorporate an entirely new alien species into our civilization. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way because the Tavaran attacked us. They wanted what we had, and it was a full all-out war, our first interspecies war, and it was terrible. But what came out of it was the rise of a young Colonel Ivar Messar, who rose through the ranks and became the hero of the war at the famous Battle of Idris IV, where he managed to turn the tide of the offensive and really stick it to those Tavaran. And even though the Tavaran weren't as technologically advanced as we were, they were brilliant strategists and were able to hold out much longer than anyone thought, even taking over human systems and driving our forces back. So by the end of these 4 years, we were able to conquer them. We sent them fleeing out into the verse, hiding in various places in Banu and Xi'an space. So after that moment, we started colonizing and terraforming worlds that were formerly part of the Tavaran Empire, were now part of the human empire, as Ivar Messer had now become the Imperator and had transformed the United Planets of Earth eventually into the United Empire of Earth. Now, everything seemed to be going well as humans settled into Elysium until around 2603, when the Tavaran returned with a vengeance. And they had a new leader. And they had a new leader called Karth Tal, who was dead set on reclaiming the Tavaran homeworld for his people. And he burned a path through the stars, fighting his way towards Elysium. There was in Centauri, the famous Battle of Centauri, where Squadron 42 had their first major victory ever in shutting down the Tavaran offensive after a grueling 7 years of fighting. Rather than accept the defeat there, the Tavaran pushed through the jump in Centauri and fought their way towards their home planet, knowing that it was a doomed effort, until they finally turned on their shields. Oh, whoops, that was null. They did not go to null. However, they did go to Elysium, where eventually they turned off their shields and crash landed onto the planet, burning up in the skies of Elysium 4, which some of you may have seen in the famous painting that commemorated the moment that was called Tears of Fire. Some of you may have seen the famous moment of the ships crashing into the planet's atmosphere and burning up in the famous painting Tears of Fire that commemorated this historic moment. So after the Second Tavaran War, the Tavaran were pretty much shattered, and humanity was kind enough to offer them a place amongst us as a subjugated people, which catches up to 2610. So that's a little bit of the backstory that marks Elysium. Let's go now and start looking at the system itself. Currently it's got 4 known jump points, one between Elysium and Centauri, another between Elysium and Lear, an Elysium Idris jump point, and an Elysium Vanguard jump point, which is a little bit telling about how the system works. The Vanguard one, of course, is Vanduul space, which is a threatening area. Centauri itself is a pretty happening system. It's home to Misk, so there's a lot of business traffic that flows through there. In Lear is kind of an outsider system, home, in fact, to the outsiders. So traffic to there is a little bit odd, to say the least. And finally, there's Idris, which still is trying to regain its footing after the Battle of Idris 4, which left it terribly scarred. So a medium amount of traffic heading in and out of the system, which is Elysium is still today trying to find its footing in the Empire. It's known mostly for its historical significance, but it's trying to forge ahead and define itself in the world of 2946. So let's look at the sun now. So the Elysium star is an F-type main sequence star. It's 1 to 1.4 times the mass of our sun with a white to yellow light. It burns hotter and faster than our sun, so it's going to give it a little bit of a shorter lifespan than you would expect for our system. But of course, the shorter lifespan in terms of the galaxy is still billions and billions of years. 2 to 4 billions to be precise, or unprecise, as I gave a range of numbers instead of an exact one. Now, next up, moving away from the star, is we have Elysium 1, which is kind of a cool planet in itself, in that it is a hot Jupiter in classification, also known as a migrating gas giant that was believed to have been formed in the outer reaches of the system and then migrated inward, sweeping up loose planets and stuff in its path until it settled in very close to the star itself, only about 0.1 AU away. This means that its surface gas is very hot, creating a lot of wind circling around and a very even surface temperature. So it'll be interesting trying to fly there to harvest things because of its proximity to the sun. From Elysium 1, we're going to head on out to Elysium 2, which is a coreless planet. Coreless doesn't mean that it's hollow on the inside. It means that it just doesn't have a magnetic core, so it's solid throughout without a spinning core like Earth has. This means it's kind of a bit of a dead, lifeless rock in the system floating around. Some mining to be done there, but it still hasn't been heavily developed yet. Its surface is heavily impacted by craters, which have led many scientists to speculate that there was some significantly large impact in its past, but the Tavaran records don't indicate anything during their time, and scientists are still trying to work out exactly what happened through research. So, heading out from Elysium 2, we're going to head over to Voska, Elysium 3, which is a desert planet, which is really cool. When we took over this system from the Tavaran, this world was pretty much left alone. It was desert, arid, really warm, very little water, and it seems that the Tavaran did not have terraforming technology like we did. So when the UEE took over, one of the things he did was terraform the planet. Now, a lot of its surface is sparsely inhabited. It's still, even though it's terraformed, it's still a very rough place to live. Very little when it comes in terms of water. There is some water mining going on at the polar caps, but they're pretty small. A lot of the water has to be either shipped in on haulers or from water harvesting units that are sprouted throughout the desert. One of the major landing zones on the planet is Rez's Landing, which is an arcology built by Rayari Inc., used to mine some of the resources in the planet. It's been digging itself deeper and deeper as the years goes, as it struggles to find more and more resources to harvest. It is represented in the Senate, so even though it's sparsely populated, it does have representation in the Senate. Moving on from this desert world, we're going to head probably to the highlight of the system, which is Jolin. Now, Jolin is formerly, for the Tavaran, Caliph. It was their homeworld, and to date it probably houses more Tavaran architecture and historical sites than any other planet in the system. Big part of this is due to the Tavaran Purge, where after the Second Tavaran War, a lot of the remaining Tavaran sought to free themselves from their connection to their past, as it had failed them so much, and a lot of these important sites were destroyed by the Tavaran themselves. However, because Jolin was in human control at the time, a lot of these sites were preserved for future generations to appreciate. The main city on Jolin is the capital, Gemma, which hosts a major temple upon a mount, which from searching through the Tavaran records, we know they chose the site because of its strategic importance, that it was well fortified and easy to defend rather than any kind of beautiful vista or religious significance. The temple is a Rajoran temple, which was the battle religion of the Tavaran. It's a major tourist site today, and a lot of preservation efforts are currently going on to save the Tavaran artifacts from being destroyed just from ship traffic and people walking around. So there's a major effort right now to conserve the sites, even though that goes against kind of one of the major industries on Gemma, which is tourism. So trying to balance those two is an issue that's going on. Landing in Gemma will appear different than landing in other worlds because the landing port is designed to blend into the Tavaran architecture, so that's kind of neat. One of the major things that you might have been reading about recently is the upcoming election that's happening on Jolin for a Senate seat. The election's coming up on May 3rd, so the debates are starting to heat up across the spectrum as people decide which candidate to support. Of note is the fact that it's the first Tavaran running to be Senator Suj Kosi, and he is an ex-military man, served in the Navy, and he has a criminal background himself before he earns citizenship. So he's offering a lot of hope to the Tavaran out there for bettering their lives in the UEE. A lot of people are still holding grudges for those two wars, so it'll be interesting to see whether he's able to gain the seat or not. He is a centralist and has a lot of core beliefs and believes in the strength of the military and in the central government. he's going against two other candidates. One, Sake Marigold, who's more of a transitionalist and is looking to curtail military spending in light of the new war with the Vandal and really focus in on rebuilding the social structures that are needed. There's a lot of unemployment and poverty going on in Jolin, as the system itself hasn't really struck its economic foothold yet outside of its Tavaran artifacts and tourism. The third candidate is Gabrielle Garcian, who is a centralist. She served on the Governor's Council for a while and has the backing of the current administration. A lot of people are a little bit wary of electing her because they fear that it'll be a return to the norm. But she has a lot of experience, whereas the other two candidates don't as much. So moving on from Jolin, we're going to head way out, 12.6 AU out, to Elysium 5, which is a dwarf planet lurking way out in the stretches of the system. And it is a small rocky body. So there you are. That is the Elysium system, and I hope I was able to enlighten you on some of its finer points today, and that you enjoyed taking this lore maker's guide to the galaxy journey with me. Thank you so much.
Thanks, William, for the detailed look at the Elysium system.
We would like to officially welcome Tyler Witkin to the community team. You may be familiar with Tyler's efforts as a senior QA member in Austin, and now he's one of us. So you'll be seeing him on the forums, Reddit, all those places where we frequent.
Well, he was always one of us. We just hijacked him.
Yes.
And by tradition, a new community manager means a new host for MVP. Let's go over to Tyler to see who stood out this week.
Hey there, Tyler Witkin, Community Manager in the Austin, Texas studio, here to bring you this week's MVP. Congratulations to Paul C2K for his Starfarer maps. They generated a lot of awesome conversation on the forums, and actually QA was using them in order to find their way around the map during testing, so congratulations!
You're this week's MVP. Say you're this week's MVP.
You're this week's MVP.
Thanks, Tyler. Glad to have you here. Now let's see what lies in Star Citizen's future with this week's A.T.V. Fast Forward. Check it out.
Be sure to tune into Reverse the Verse tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific on Twitch. We'll be talking about that fast forward and all other aspects of Star Citizen's development. And if you like Around the Verse, please like and subscribe to our channel. I know that sounds ridiculous. You hear it on YouTube all the time. It actually does help a lot with our metrics, so help us out.
We are getting very close to 200,000.
Yay!
Yay! And if you would like to interact with Ben and I directly, hit us up on social media at the links below. With that, thank you to subscribers for making this show possible. We will see you next week on Around the Verse. Did you know that many of Star Citizen's developers are on social media? If you would like to follow Star Citizen on Facebook, you can find us here.
Or on Twitter, here.
And even Instagram here.
And for a full list of developers' personal accounts they're willing to share with the community, check out this link. You can find out what I bought at Amazon this week.
Star Wars stuff.
It was probably Star Wars stuff.